This podcast is brought to you by the Goosebumps Crew Podcast.
Welcome back to the AI Analysis Podcast. This week we're looking at an episode of the Arete podcast, our creator whose name we still can't pronounce. Our AI isn't perfect, but we've been upgraded to a longer podcast.
That's right. We're looking at that conversation they had with Allie from Literature and Lingerie.
Yeah, digging into their discussion about books, writing, content creation, all based on the transcript they gave us.
Exactly. We're pulling out the interesting bits about literature, language, the creative process online.
So yeah, let's get into it. First up, who is Allie and what's her show about, according to this source?
Okay, so her show is Literature and Lingerie, and the premise, based on what they said, is these novel deep dives.
Right, where she takes specific books.
Specific novels, yeah. And importantly, ones that are out of copyright. She looks at them from a writer's angle.
Like characters, plot devices, the author's craft, that kind of thing.
Exactly. She was apparently working through a Nancy Drew book when they recorded.
And she does poetry, too.
Yeah, sometimes she adds videos discussing poems, breaking down imagery, structure, really focusing on the mechanics behind it all.
Interesting angle. And that focus on out-of-copyright books led them to talk about, well, copyright.
It did, yeah, the complexities of it.
Because the rules are different depending on where you are, right? They mentioned Canada.
Right, in Canada, it's 50 years after the author's death.
But the U.S. is longer.
Yeah, 70 years post-mortem in the U.S. And they specifically mention Disney's role in pushing for those extensions.
Ah, the Steamboat Willie example, keeping things locked up.
Pretty much. It keeps works under protection for, well, a really long time, over 90 years in some cases.
And this isn't just theoretical. It affects Allie directly, like with Nancy Drew.
Exactly. Books 7, 8, and 9 are apparently public domain in Canada now. The author died back in the 50s.
But in the U.S.
The first 3 books don't hit public domain until 2026.
Wow. So you really have to navigate that depending on where you are and what you want to cover.
Definitely. It shapes what's available, especially if you're focusing on those older works.
So speaking of accessing books, they transitioned into how they each got into reading in the first place, which is always fun.
Yeah. Allie mentioned, starting with Nancy Drew, around grade 3, just reading tons from the library.
A classic start. And the host of the Arete podcast, Animorphs.
Ah, Animorphs. From the Scholastic Book Fair, they said.
Yeah. It really highlights that idea of a gateway series, the one that just hooks you.
Totally. And for the host, it seems like that connection led to a bit of collector's regret later on.
Oh, yeah. Selling the Animorphs collection.
And then finding out what some are worth now.
Like that combo book went from maybe $6 to $80 or something.
Exactly. Because when publishers stop printing, rarity kicks in and prices can just shoot up.
They mentioned half-price books as a place to hunt for stuff like that.
Though it sounds like some series are harder to find now, like Goosebumps, because of the IP revivals.
Right, demand goes up. But Nancy Drew Yellowbacks are apparently still easy enough to find.
Interesting contrast. So from reading and collecting, they moved on to Allie's own writing journey.
Right, she talked about that balancing act. Having a practical day job, healthcare, with a pension.
Important stuff.
But also pursuing the writing passion on the side.
And she's serious about it.
Yeah.
Did 2 years of writing, school screenplay, playwright, fiction.
And she's working on her own big project now, right? A trilogy.
Yeah, an urban sci-fi fantasy trilogy.
Okay, what's the premise they described?
It follows an autistic protagonist, moves to a new city for university,
Okay.
starts encountering, like, otherworldly creatures, meets elementals, starts wondering if she's actually human.
Whoa.
Yeah, gets pulled into this multi-dimensional world. There's some kind of shady organization involved. Sounds pretty involved.
And where is she with writing it?
Book 1. Done. Book 2. Needs final edits. Book 3. Actively writing, jumping around between scenes.
That's cool. And she talked about how it grew, right? Like it wasn't planned as a trilogy.
Exactly. Started as 1 book, felt too big, became 2, then finally revealed itself as 3. Organically.
They used the Lord of the Rings analogy for that, how Tolkien originally saw it as one big book.
Right. Which then led them into talking about book-to-movie adaptations.
Ah, yes. The classic LOTR versus the Hobbit comparison. Same director, different reception.
Definitely. They specifically called out the Battle of 5 Armies in The Hobbit.
How it was just one chapter stretched into a whole movie.
Yeah, highlighting that challenge of adaptation. And they even touched on Tolkien's view of war.
Minimizing battle scenes in the books.
Versus the movies making it look, well, pretty spectacular. Kind of undercuts the war is bad message if the fighting looks awesome.
That's a fair point. Okay, let's pause there for a moment. We'll get back to our analysis after a brief word from our sponsor.
Greetings, boys and girls. My name is Isaiah Vargas. For over 3 decades, R.L. Stine's Goosebumps has reigned as one of the best-selling book series in history, spawning a monster franchise that's lasted since 1992 and spawning a massive fan base. Folks who love to talk about this influential series, and that's where we come in. Join the Goosebumps crew, Nick Shaw, Bjorn Panelik, and myself every week as we dive into the world of Goosebumps and talk about everything from the books, TV shows, movies, video games, merchandise, and so much more. Many like-minded Goosebumps fans and a growing list of special guests join us, so if you want Goosebumps, get with the program. Tune in to the Goosebumps crew every week on YouTube and audio platforms. Become a Goosebumps crew member today. Listen with the lights on.
And we're back, analyzing the conversation between the Arete podcast host and ally from literature and lingerie. Before the break, we were talking adaptations, which led them to discussing classic literature language, right, like reading Jane Austen or Shakespeare. Ally mentioned having 2 copies of Pride and Prejudice.
And they got into comparing the Pride and Prejudice adaptations, the 2005 movie versus the 1995 miniseries.
Yeah, talking about different portrayals of Darcy,
Yep.
like Matthew Macfadyen in the '05 version capturing this awkward vulnerability.
Which they felt was maybe less obvious in the Colin Firth version, but still there in the book itself.
Exactly. It highlights how adaptations bring different things, but the original text offers that deeper dive into the period's language, manners, social structures.
It definitely takes some mental adjustment, doesn't it? To get into that 1800s headspace, the host even noted Pride and Prejudice came out in 1813, right during the War of 1812.
Wow, yeah, good context. And they also talk about authors playing with language, like the dialect in The Secret Garden.
Or how character is revealed through dialogue in Pride and Prejudice, Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, or Darcy and Elizabeth's exchanges.
For sure. Then they shifted to a really fun segment.
Yeah.
Unique books they own. Oldest, favorite, weirdest.
Okay, oldest. What did they mention?
Ally had a 1977 Shakespeare printed in Romania, a 61 Winnie the Pooh, an old Alice in Wonderland. The host had a 1901 school book, American Leaders and Heroes, and an 1865 book on the Spanish-American War.
Some genuinely old finds there. Favorite physical book?
Ally's was the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows.
Oh, I know that one. Made up words for specific feelings.
Exactly, which then sparked a whole discussion about creating languages.
Because Ally made one for her series.
Yeah. Xamarind, full grammar, dictionary, the works, with help from a friend.
That's dedication. The host related, talking about learning Elvish script, writing in code.
And friends learning Esperanto just for fun.
They mentioned famous constructed languages too, right? Star Trek, Dune.
Yeah, the complexity in Dune's terminology, Klingon is a learnable language. The host also showed off a cool dual-language Faust book, German and English side by side.
Nice. Okay, what about the weirdest books?
Some good ones. Plants That Kill, The Hobbit, Latin.
In Latin, seriously.
Apparently. Also Korean kids' books, or everyday life books, and a French Bible, including the Apocrypha.
That's quite a collection of oddities. It really shows how books connect to culture and language, doesn't it?
Totally. They discussed how understanding language patterns, like Spanish ser versus estar, or tener miedo.
Right, to have fear instead of to be afraid.
Or concepts embedded in language. Inuit words for snow, Japanese words for love, Spanish te quiero versus te amo.
It gives you cultural insight. They mention name meanings too, like Sailor Moon or Naruto characters.
Yeah, Uchiha, meaning fan, connecting to the fire element. It led nicely into analyzing writing choices.
Contrasting maybe less effective writing, the host used Harry Potter Goblet of Fire's plot complexity as an example of feeling potentially convoluted.
Right, what they called maybe lazy writing in that instance.
Versus really intentional choices like good plot twists, the Snape reveal is the example there.
Where everything clicks into place, yeah, good payoff.
So from the writing itself, they moved into the realities of, well, making content about writing in books.
Ally's show Evolution came up. Started wanting to do wholesome stories, poetry.
Then pivoted to using her writing knowledge for book breakdowns, and that's when it took off more.
And they both talked about the editing time, that hidden part of content creation.
Oh, yeah. Recording's the easy bit. Editing takes forever. Ally taught herself video editing for it.
And that feeling of looking back at early stuff and cringing.
Haha, yeah. But you gotta start somewhere, right? Everyone does.
Definitely. The host shared his experience using YouTube Shorts for growth.
With the Average Intelligence podcast, yeah.
Yeah.
Going from hardly any subscribers to thousands.
Yeah, some shorts went semi-viral. And they mentioned tools making it easier now, like Visitor.ai for automatically clipping shorts.
Technology helps. So what's Allie planning for the future of her channel?
She wants to do more videos specifically on writing craft.
Makes sense, playing to her strengths.
And more audience interaction. Maybe live streams to discuss books together.
Live streams are great for that. Builds community.
She also mentioned wanting to improve production quality. And maybe even analyze the old 70s Nancy Drew TV show.
Oh, fun. Checking the Internet Archive for episodes, they suggested.
Yeah. And they briefly mentioned her Patreon, Boudoir Photography, separate from the main channel, and gave shout-outs.
Right. The Goosebumps Crew podcast and that revival book, One of the Unveiled book series, got to include those mentions from the source.
So wrapping it all up, what are the big takeaways from their chat?
Well, clearly the passion people have for books, the layers you can find in language and writing, and just the reality of the creative journey online.
Yeah, it's not just passive reading. It's engaging, discussing, analyzing. It connects you to so much.
So here's a thought inspired by their talk. Think about your own bookshelf. What's the weirdest book you own, or the oldest, or the one that just means the most?
How does its language or its history, or even just the story of how you got it, connect you to something bigger? A different culture, a different time.
Yeah, we genuinely love to hear. Echoing them, share your oldest, favorite, or weirdest book finds.
And if you want to check out Allie's stuff, based on their conversation, it's Literature and Lingerie on YouTube and argadia.org for audio. Plus those shout-outs, Goosebumps Crew Podcast, and the Revival book.
And the final, maybe most important takeaway, strongly pushed in the source material. Just read more books.
Absolutely. And audiobooks definitely count. Until next time.
Keep exploring those stories.
You make me wanna.
Hello. Welcome to Wholesome Monday.
Poetry Thursday.
Wholesome Monday.
Poetry Thursday.
Welcome to literature. Sorry, wow. Say that 3 times 5. 3 times 5. 3 times 5. Fuck. My YouTube channel to accompany my Patreon. That sounds like I made my Patreon and then made my YouTube channel. Nix that. Okay, I'm gonna start over. Welcome to Literature and Lingerie, where we will mostly on YouTube be getting up to a lot of literature. Hit that subscribe button, and I think they say you should hit the bell, right? So that you're notified. No. I probably should have vetted that. I mean, it was 1888, so what do I expect? Edgar, what the? God, this strap.